Hey, Neo fam, happy Monday to you. It's Monday, June 15th, 2026. It's about 11:42 a.m. Central Time as I'm recording this here in the US. And on screen, we've got NIO Stock. I'm going to run through first, before we get to the new updated FTD data. We'll run through the three short-term stock price indicators as I've been tracking them for these last few years, because the trade volume, for example, continues to be very low. For example, today, not even 11 million shares traded. That is low volume for NIO. And that plays in the favor of shorts and or market makers who may want to control stock price action. That's just my view and take on it. The second is the FTDs. And of course, we did get some new data. That's what this video is going to kind of hone in on. A couple of different points that I want to make and extrapolate from this. But first off, let's see, which one do I have pulled up? I've got a few things I wanted to point out. This is the time frame I was wondering about was when we would get this newest data right in here, because this is not only the sell-off when NIO had their most recent earnings, but the dates here with the only recent day of over 100 million share trade volume for NIO came on May 21st. And so I was like, all right, let's just wait and see if we won't have an indicator from the FTD data, like maybe if there was a spike that will be reported and we'll have to wait about a month to see that. Well, here's the FTD data with the most recent spike. And that was reported on May 20th. And there were over 2.5 million shares that could not be delivered. And that's the date that they reported it. That doesn't mean it was that day. But again, what I was wondering is if we wouldn't see an alignment and a pretty obvious correlation here. Now, what I've got on screen is also very intentional. I went back to October of 2025 because I wanted to also look at the low trade volume, which I know we've had since that time frame, and the stock price moving down with the elevated FTDs. So let's go back to the NIO stock because I want to point this out here. We've got the this is October, and so the price point with NIO, this is before the move down from that $7 plus level. And you see the big move down here, right? And with that, we had a couple of days with over 100 million share trade volume, and then just a few into this year of 2026. In fact, by my count, from about this time frame with this sell-off and down into end of year, and then the slow progression with the stock price here in this year of 2026, there were only about 6 days with 100 million share trade volume for NIO. And yet, if we look at that same time frame for the data, and this is only the data we have, but with the most recent date aligning with this spike on the FTDs, this right here on the right-hand side, this is the 1 million mark. And if NIO is trading such low volume, there shouldn't be elevated spikes on the FTD side of things. This is my simple logic and reasoning. But what we've got instead are 11 days dating back to the same time frame with over 1 million shares and as many as over 4.5 million shares that couldn't be located. And that's compared to just 6 trade days with 100 million share trade volume or more, which to me makes it seem like shorts are probably, and or market makers are really keeping this thing in a range at least. Now I have a couple more things to offer. I've got them queued up, but this is the big picture. So if we zoom out, because on the very short-term time frame, you might say, well, it looks like the FTDs aren't as much of a deluge. But again, remember the point I just made, the volumes have been very low. And then when we zoom out, you see the resurgence is obvious and it's very heavy. And it continues dating back to this time frame of late 2021 when there were ETPs, which have some levered volatility plays, or not volatility, but trading plays. And that's in markets in Europe where NIO isn't even traded officially. So look, this is just the data as I nerd out on it and research it and share it. But again, this is the time frame where when NIO stock made its really big move, we had 75 trade days of 100 million share trade volume within a 6-month period. Stock price went from $3.50 to over $55. And that was right in here when we saw the FTDs significantly drop off and stay off for a while. Then as they came back, what we saw is the slow drawdown, which, by the way, this is about the $40 price point. And this is how long it's taken them to bring it back and keep it in this sort of range-bound $5, $6 range at this stage. So now I want to switch something out because in the super short term. These are three things that might make things interesting with respect to both the FTDs, as we'll get them moving forward, and the trade volume. The first is this. This is and it's in fact the biggest number of out of the money calls that I found, period, for NIO all the way into December of 2028. And what that tells me is this is the most compelling thing to keep an eye on in the super short term. And it happens to be options expiring the end of this week. So that is a very short-term thing that I'll be watching and tracking. According to this, $5 is the max pain price point. And where are we trading right now? $5.28. So if the low volume continues and market makers want to take it to around the $5 level, you better believe I won't be surprised if they do that. But that's the super short-term thought and sort of indicator that I'll be watching. And the second, as I've got it at the bottom of the screen now, the June delivery numbers. What happens with those? And if NIO comes in with, let's say, a new monthly delivery record, or even if they're close to it, if they just come in with their guidance, the numbers are going to be very strong. And that's going to also boost the Q2, the quarter two, delivery numbers and the likelihood for profitability in the quarter. It sets up a beautiful finish to the end of the year, hopefully for NIO, with what we'll see into 2027 as full year profitability. But let's come back, because I don't even want to go that far out yet. The other thing that I'm thinking is the third, and it's again before end of year, but it's when she comes to the US to visit. Maybe we will have more positive and more obvious agreements made and touted and announced by Trump and Xi at that point. And I think that also gives more time for some sort of resolution with what's going on in the Middle East. This is just, there's a lot more to play out, in my view, globally, and then with respect to US and China, and with what's going on in the Middle East. So I wanted to kind of just address this and also offer some of these shorter term things that I'll be watching and tracking. Of course, this gives me more time to keep studying data. And if we don't see big trade volume return for NIO, I just won't be surprised if it's a little boring, let's say, with price action until the end of the year. So that's my thought as kind of the big picture overview. And the final thing I wanted to do is, with this, now that I've pulled up NIO, kind of a reminder as to where we are versus where we started the year. And again, this was with that sort of sell-off into the end of the year. NIO starting the year, this right here, this date, January 2nd, 2026. The open for NIO, $5.32. The high that day, $5.38. The low, $5.08. The close, $5.14. And yes, it was low volume, just over 40 million shares traded that day. Today, as I stated before, and now it's about 11, it'll be about 11:50 when I finish this video here, Central Time, on Monday, June 15th, 2026. And with very low volume, not even 11 million shares traded, $5.27 is the price point. So what do you think? Will any of the three short-term indicators that I have at the bottom of the screen, will they even make a difference? Are we going to see trade volume increase at all? Are we going to see that max pain come in? I want to know what some of you are thinking with respect to some of what I shared in this video. And let me get this thing up and out as soon as possible. I'll create timestamps because I'm guessing it'll be over 8 minutes. Yeah, so let me get this thing up and out just as soon as possible, but have a great day or night whenever you see this. I'll see y'all again very soon.